It's Global Entrepreneurship Week, a chance for entrepreneurs to come together to share their insight and experience with a view to inspiring the next generation of game changers. I'm throwing these panelists into the deep end. They're fintech influencers. And we're asking whether to compete or collaborate in lieu of the changing circumstances around us. I'm just going to ask each individual to briefly introduce themselves before we start thinking about what we're really going to do in this situation. So Timo, if I could start with you. Who are you? Where do you come from, and what do you do?
Yes, thank you. Right now with Coparion, I'm investment manager at Coparion. It's a 225 million venture fund based in Cologne, and I'm running the Berlin office. And we're looking at all kinds of startups, no sector focus, but we are very focused on Germany. But before that, I was with an insurance company. I was the head of digital. And before that, I worked for a startup called OptioPay, and also for a bank based in London and Dubai, and also for an early stage investment company in London. And I'm pretty sure I can see both sides. I have an idea about the ecosystem in London and, of course, in Germany.
Wonderful. Thomas.
Yeah, hello from Frankfurt. So my name is Thomas, and I'm the co-director of Tech Quartier. We are a newly installed hub for primarily fintechs, and that do work together with banks. We currently have 90 plus fintechs here at Tech Quartier, which are in a lively exchange and collaboration with the major banks here in Frankfurt. So our main partners are Deutsche Bank, Deutsche Börse, Commerzbank, Helaba. So a lot of the bigger corporates are really active here in Frankfurt and strongly collaborating with the fintech world. And this is precisely what we do. And of course, we also have very strong international cooperations, and are looking forward to even closer collaboration with, for example, Great Britain or London.
Wonderful. Gerrit?
Yes. Hi, I'm Gerrit. I'm head of business development with FinLeap. We are Europe's biggest company builder in the fintech space, and within 3 years we built 13 fintech ventures, for example, Solaris Bank or Element or Clark. And now, 2 months ago, we moved to a new building, which is going to be the biggest fintech hub in Europe now. And we have a pretty comparable concept like the tech quarter, but we are in close relationship and exchange. So we are, of course, looking for collaboration more than competition.
Fantastic. And Liz?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I apologize. I'm Liz Umley. I've been observing financial technology for about 23 years, basically how banks and financial institutions use data and technology. Most recently, I was managing director of Startup Bootcamp FinTech in London, where we helped FinTech startups accelerate. And right now, I'm working on research looking at how FinTech companies attract and retain talent, and building up a foundation that helps female entrepreneurs in emerging markets.
Wonderful. Asif?
Hello, I'm Asif Farouk, head of content at Level 39. Level 39 is a hub in Canary Wharf in London. We have 203 small businesses working here, 140 of them in fintech, 48 different nationalities, and we're very much open. Liz, funnily enough, used to be my editor back when I was a reporter covering financial technology for a few years. So we're all good friends here.
Wonderful. And Andra, delighted you joined us.
Yes, finally. Hi. So my career was mainly in consulting, technology consulting for banks over 20 years. I have seen quite a lot, and mostly the unseen parts of the bank. of the banks. Right now I do consulting, so I'm again, but different one, a different type. I work through 11FS, which is a small and very dynamic consulting company in the field of fintech and innovation. I'm also doing my PhD in the same time, trying to figure out what's next for banking infrastructure.
Fantastic. So a panel of people who've got a very clear understanding of what it's like in the trenches of this situation at the moment, the lay of the land. We're going to play a bit of a game at this brainstorm. And rather than deciding for or against any particular solution, which actually limits our options when it comes to generating innovation, we're going to broaden our perspective by examining it from multiple points of view. I'm going to describe these to each of my panelists, and you've got about 45 seconds to a minute to answer each one. So if we start with the lay of the land, what does it look like for fintech from where you're standing, from your point of view, the situation? Thomas, perhaps I can start with you. Taking stock of the fintech sector right now.
Yes. Well, the fintech sector is definitely in a strong movement currently. So we see really a lot of things happening. However, I think the next couple of years will prove whether this movement is sustainable or not. So currently a lot of money is invested into fintechs. There's a huge interest from corporates, from the banks, then also from the government. We see that here in Frankfurt that there's a huge interest in the entire scene. However, I think that the next 2 to 3 years will really prove if the topic of fintech is the one that is really disrupting the entire banking industry, or if it perhaps are the digital giants that kind of have fintech only as a side product, right? That really tackle or kind of develop new business models, new solutions within the fintech sphere. So taking stock, it's really a great movement at the moment. However, we will see what will happen in the next 2 to 3 years and who will really disrupt the entire industry.
Liz, what do you think?
You know, there are so many new entrants that have come into the market in the past few years, especially when sort of fintech started being a term that was used a lot. And I think it gets it's easy to sneer at a lot of these fintechs because a large proportion, and this happens in the startup world, aren't that groundbreaking and aren't actually disruptive to the traditional incumbent financial services model. But that's not to say that that's not a good road to go down. I mean, I'm a big fan of this whole ecosystem where I think banks and incumbents and traditional players play a huge role as sort of the platform for the new financial age and having new entrants build on top of them, which is that promise of open banking that we're going to see next year. But in terms of actually disrupting the industry that makes products better for customers, I think that needs to happen outside of the traditional banking world. There are just far too many limitations in traditional banks for a truly disruptive product to be built from one of the big players. So it's banks are just too embedded in product silos to be able to bring up products that might be temporary, that might, you know, cover a specific tailored customer segment. And I think we have not yet seen a real big player, a real disruptive force in fintech yet, but that doesn't mean to say it's not going to happen. And I think it will happen, especially when we see what happens with the CMA directive and the PSD2 next year. I think that's going to be a huge game changer for the industry.
Fantastic, thanks. And if you're watching as we have the conversation, please add your view into the chat box. Participate by contributing in that way. Thank you. Gerrit, if I come to you, lay of the land.
Yeah, so what we are basically seeing is that the potential in the fintech space is exactly the collaboration between banks and fintech. So banks have still a lot of money, they have huge customers and still a good brand, but they don't have digital talents, they don't have agility, they don't have speed, and the fit between both. So on the one side, the startups, they can be kind of speedboats to bring new ideas to life, and then access the bank customers over the kind of B2B2C business to collaborate between banks and fintechs. So I think this is one model which we're going to see today and which might be successful in future. And the second thing is what we also see in the fintech space, that through new technology you can, financial services kind of meter layer over all industries, and we see more and more collaboration also outside of the typical financial services space. So for instance, our Solaris Bank now is able to enable other industries to provide financial service solutions. And I think this is also an interesting space which fintech enables other markets or the whole economy to be innovative in the financial services area.
Fantastic. Andra?
So where to start? So let's not forget that financial services is a regulated industry. Yeah? So this limits a lot and what a startup could do. It's not like approaching other industries where there is competition. And you spot a place on the market and you serve that thing and you extend as much as you can. Mostly for years, and I watched this sector for way too many years. The adoption of even the best idea in fintech depended on the cooperation with banks. And even when the banks had the goodwill to cooperate, very often it was not possible. So really, let's not kid ourselves that just the goodwill solves this problem. So I'm with Liz on this, and probably because we have seen for many years.
I feel your pain.
the same thing. I mean, we were in Finovate, I don't know how many years ago, and we were thinking, oh my God, this change will happen, So, but it doesn't, and it will not. It will not happen as fast as we know it. I truly believe that the change will happen outside the traditional banks. The technology stack of the current banks, and we're talking retail here, it's so messy and it's so difficult to disentangle, and there is so little knowledge left in the banks due to the outsourcing processes and so on, that you cannot improve it realistically. You can just stitch it, yeah. So fintech companies are at the mercy of that. So we are hoping that new fintech companies, more visionary companies, will push the regulatory rules in order to establish structures which will enable other fintechs to evolve alongside traditional banks.
I think that's interesting. From my point of view, the background of innovation, digital music was patented in 1981, and it was another 20 years it became a commercially sort of acceptable product. So those innovation cycles do take longer than for the market to catch up with ideas. Timo, the lay of the land from your point of view.
Yeah, thank you. In my point of view, it's pretty simple. The numbers are out there. 90% of all startups will die. Just 10% can really become big. With dying, I mean they disappear from the market. The first bunch of startups will disappear. lack of profitability, lack of business model. The other ones will merge with other startups, and the third ones got acquired from banks. When we talk about startups, we have to keep that in mind. And also the behavior of clients is, in my point of view, very tragic, because when you ask people, are you happy with your bank? People say probably no. Did you switch the bank to another one? No. For startups, it's pretty tough to compete with the banks and to acquire clients. And also regulation, someone dropped the word, also protect the industry. We definitely see that more and more people use fintechs, and also they get part of the value chain. But in my point of view, we will not see an Uber or an Airbnb moment that someone really changed the market from one day to another.
Asif, your lay of the land.
It's always hard when you have to be the last person to speak after this many good speakers. So thanks for that. You know, I can only just echo what everyone said in slightly different ways, and I agree with everything. My lay of the land, there's two kinds of fintech. There's the kind of fintech that's been enhancing and optimizing financial systems since the 60s, whether it's capital markets trading infrastructure or the COBOL-based mainframes of banks. Then you've got this sexy new fintech that kind of got popular in the recent years. And to echo Andrea and Liz, I think that that kind of fintech will only proliferate outside of the tightly controlled banking regulations and culture. And if they do, and to echo, I think it was Timo who just said that 90% of startups will fail. Fine. If they fail, fine. But what they can do, absolutely, is push new ways of thinking, push new models of finance, and that would be a great legacy, I think. So that's what I
totally agree.
Great. Right, now we're going to switch mindsets. And if you're following, please add your answers into the chat. Imagine that this situation is suddenly covered in a thick coating of snow. We're moving into winter. Conditions metaphorically turn really cold and frosty. The Cold War of fintech, if you like to imagine it that way. Imagine in this competition and collaboration that it becomes very harsh. What starts to happen then? What are you prioritizing? What remains important to staying alive, surviving, metaphorically, business speaking, in harsh conditions? Timo, I'll start with you this time.
In my point of view, it's like you have to think about that as a start. We see a couple of models that say we collaborate when we start the business, like OptiPay or other companies. Number 26, for example, it's a platform. It's really tough when the conditions are bad that you pivot, because when you say I want to disrupt the market, and then the conditions are getting worse and worse, and you say, okay, now I want to work with banks or with other startups. Then it's really tough. I think it's a very strategic decision at the beginning, and it doesn't matter how the conditions are. Follow your way. You can pivot a bit when it's tough, but follow your way. When you identify a problem, try to solve it. Don't change your strategy only. I would not say that it's impossible to change a strategy, or it's not a good advice, but if you believe on something and if you see there's a demand for it, keep going. And yeah, other influence, they're not so hard that you can tackle you. Although keep your way, believe in yourself, and don't change your strategy if you believe in.
Thank you. Andrea, what would you say?
I'm not sure. Did you ask at enterprise level what somebody would do, or at market level, or how did you place the question regarding the winter?
From their personal perspective. So, from your point of view, in terms of supporting the continuation of fintech, if it gets really cold out there for us, perhaps I can go to Gerrit and you can have a think.
I think it was pretty cold for a while, if you ask me.
No, I'm saying it's cold now. The Cold War is happening now.
Yeah, it depends where. Yeah, probably depends where you are in this market. The weather is not the same like for everybody. It's not the season, and we are all in autumn or all in winter. To keep the fintech going, I mean, the fintech will keep going. I mean, we gave it a label and we see it as something very different, but it's just in a market that exists, which has at the foundation technology. So every company, every financial institution, big or small, functions with technology, and it's essentially a technology company. So it's not like we invented a new type of need and we are wondering it will survive or not. This is the business. The financial needs are real. They need to be served. They are not well served by the existing incumbents. So the laws of the market say that people will try to improve. There will be always entrepreneurs and will try to improve the situation.
Fantastic.
Of course,
what would you like to say? That's fine. That's a fantastic answer. Thank you. We need to keep them short and sharp.
Well, I'm really glad that you mentioned the Cold War, because I can't help but thinking, I don't know if anyone's seen old episodes of Yes, Prime Minister in Britain. The idea that the Soviets would never just invade. They would do salami tactics, little slices off to come in. And it was mentioned here on this panel, and it's been mentioned before in other panels I've been on. People get asked on the street, where do you trust to put your money? A bank. And that's proof. Banks will always be around, because that's that yes or no question. It's that Brexit question, yes or no. And that's not real life. That's not how fintech is going to come in. It's not going to be a big invasion. It's going to be little slices off where the banks are not paying attention. So you make a payment on Facebook, you get offered a loan. Oh, there's a mortgage. And one by one salami tactics, it gets sliced off and sliced off and sliced off. And I don't think that as much as banks talk and talk and talk the PR, they actually understand that this is what's going to happen. That one day they're going to look around and there'll just be a regulated bucket full of money, and with all these products around it. This is the unbundling. This is the salami tactics. And it's going to happen slowly and gradually. And banks are not paying attention to this because they're paying attention to their product silos. Sorry.
Gerrit, what would you like to add?
So yes, when the weather changed to bad, I think it's different from a business model. So on the one side, of course, we saw some B2C ventures when they weren't so successful. They did a pivot to the B2B model to attract one big customers and millions of end consumers, and sometimes it was successful. But on the other side, and also that we see, or what we are seeing in FinLeap with a diverse portfolio, you need to make someday a decision if you switch it maybe off, and then take the assets out of it, the team, the agility, the technology, and build something new. So not to hold too long on one idea if you're not convinced that it's going to be successful.
Great. Asif, what would you add?
I think, Celia, you've asked a fairly abstract question, so I'll give you a suitably abstract answer. I think no penguin has ever survived a harsh winter by huddling by itself. And so as the winter comes, it benefits all players to huddle with friends and like-minded peers, and sometimes enemies, to keep warm.
That's an excellent answer.
It's like you're Jon Snow, I see.
Thomas, what will you add?
Yeah, actually, that was a very good ending point of the discussion. There's nothing more to add. No, but
well, we can move into the next mindset if you like, and you can combine your answer.
I want to mention one thing. So actually, the banking industry and the fintech industry, they have moved through a winter in 2008, starting with the 15th of September in 2008, and the Lehman crisis that actually started, which still is kind of not really ongoing. However, the banks at that time, they of course needed a while to stand up again. And it started 2012, 2011, when they kind of came out of that winter and started to innovate again. And I think they should now be really well prepared and know that it's more about collaborating. And even the fiercest competitors need to sit down together and work together in order to avoid a crisis like that. And I think this is what was just mentioned about the penguin, which is a very good example. It's about collaborating and it's not about competing.
So now moving into the next mindset, we're adding some wind into this situation. And wind in this instance represents all of the external influences, large prevailing winds as such, you know, the banks and the regulators, as have already been mentioned, and even the customer base as being something which is, as a lone individual tries to fight against that prevailing wind. Then we've got the local wins, the peers and colleagues that support us. And I know that you've said coming together as a collaboration, working within a hub, can actually help to add energy to your own sales as such, bring in more wind to accelerate the progress. Just moving quickly through this mindset, can anyone think of any external influences that are affecting the fintech environment at this point in time?
Yeah.
Yes, Timo.
Yeah, when we talk about fintechs, most discussions are about entrepreneurs and, let's say, banks, incumbents, and that the banks has to be afraid of this new dynamic guys who are coming up. What a lot of people miss is that we have also the tech giants like Amazon, Google, Facebook. They were into this market. But when I would a bank, I would be more afraid of these guys than for a couple of startups out there. That's a win. No one is really talking. It's coming up right now. It's getting stronger, but that's a new win that's really coming up, and it's pretty strong.
Very bad.
Especially Amazon. Yeah.
Anyone have anything else to add to the wins?
I do.
Yes, please.
I think one big wind we have here in the UK and around the world, some might call it hot air, but I think the government plays a huge role in developing and pushing through some of the innovation that is right now at a bit of a bottleneck. I think with sufficient lobbying and support from Treasury, our financial regulator, and broadly our government, that would be a big boost in the sales, so to speak.
I want to, oh, sorry, I'm going to be very, very short. So I'm just agreeing with Timo about the big tech companies. I think also you need to put in that Alipay and WeChat from China are going to play a huge role.
Yes, definitely.
In tech.
Yeah. And maybe from my side, something regarding the wind. I don't see that every wind or change is always negatively for the business. For instance, also as PSD2, every one of you knows this very well, but it's a huge opportunity or always a change. So change in regulation can boost a business model, an idea or something like this to new level. And for instance, we are currently looking at how we can use PSD2 data for insurances on the insurance business. So there are huge opportunities also always through change. Could be in regulation, but also other external influences.
Excellent.
Can
Thomas, yes, Thomas?
One wind. I know that there are a lot of positive wins, but there are, I think, some negative wins currently. And we're also talking about Brexit today. And what I see, for example, in Germany, but also other countries, is that certain cities really compete of dragging startups from certain locations to others. So they really do fierce marketing and competing in terms of which location gets which startups and stuff like that. And I don't think that this is really helpful. So it's more about, as I said, collaborating also together as cities and together as locations, and not, for example, starting to approach startups from London, to approach startups from overseas and kind of do everything to market your own location. So it's not about location, it's really about content and about working together. And I think Europe has to move a huge step forward. in order to see Europe as Europe and not to see only country-specific needs or even city-specific needs. So I think this is definitely wind that is blowing currently, and that we see a lot of fractions here currently going on in Europe, which we shouldn't be supporting, rather than just see Europe again and not only the city level.
Great. Andrea.
So for my, I agree with all the points that you've raised, you all have raised. It's just that I see the Brexit more not as a win, but as a high-grade hurricane, honestly, for fintech and for financial services in general. And it would be too long to explain why, but if you think about the fintech world, it's a very international world. Yeah, they are very highly skilled people from all over the world. When the immigration climate is not favorable, it's very difficult to attract people, and entrepreneurship relies on expertise and initiative and energy and so on. So this is a real and serious problem. Another problem is that we are manufacturing the next financial crisis in UK, and the last measure to include a fixed date for our exit from UK has a huge implication for investment banking and all the contracts which already exist. And I don't look forward to this at all. It's very little discussed outside I don't know, economist circles, but if you pay attention to this, it's pretty scary. What are we heading into? It has also huge implications.
Staying with you for a little minute, Andrea, because you've lined us up beautifully for the next mindset, which is where we actually spend a bit of constructive time thinking negatively by introducing some rain. So the rain shows us the leaks in the roof or the blocks in the drain that we don't notice on a sunny day. And we've been conditioned to be doing a bit too much positive thinking. And I'm sure as entrepreneurs, we're all naturally quite optimistic creatures. But let's just spend some time now thinking about what are some of the potential problems. I mentioned a couple of potential problems when it comes to collaborating in fintech. Andrea, what would you like to add as a problem?
To collaborate in fintech. I would not like to add a problem to that. I'm just hoping for collaboration in all ways possible between fintech, and the...
Sorry, potential problems that you might see in the situation. You were just talking about some of the problems you were seeing. Do we see any more potential problems?
So coming from the same source, the regulatory framework will change, the investment framework will change, and these are all essential for entrepreneurship and for financial services. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thomas, on a rainy day, what can potentially go wrong?
Yes. Well, I'm actually from northern Germany, so I like rain. But however, I think this is exactly what I just meant. One of the things that it could, if it goes in a bad direction, that it could move to, then we see more fragmentation of the market, even more local thoughts that you have, only supporting your own region. And I think this is one of the biggest range that we can expect, because for entrepreneurs, actually, and this is what we talk about, and for new products, access to markets is everything. And if the regulation, for example, differs among all the European countries, and if the access to different countries is so hard, then the startups will not have an easy way. The fintechs will not have an easy way to actually access new markets. And this is why we have to work on a European level at least, and make it easier for the startups to really launch products and become active in other markets.
Fantastic. Liz?
Well, I mean, I guess we're sort of skirting around the Brexit issue as well, and also collaboration and partnership. I mean, just on the Brexit side, whether or not it's happening, but the people that are negotiating the terms are just, whatever side you're on this, are woefully unprepared and unqualified to be negotiating what's going on with Britain and the EU. But there was something that came out in the UK this week. David Davis made an announcement that bankers would get free movement in Europe post-deal. Now, I don't know what he means by that, whether that's a banker or someone that works at a bank. Obviously, that doesn't mean a startup entrepreneur, which is, kind of what we're talking about, that a lot of these startups need to have freedom of movement. So I think that's going to be a problem, whether you see cracks from people who are unqualified to negotiate complicated scenarios, and we get some strange sort of weird rules saying bankers can live wherever they want, but other people can't. Anyway, that's a very strange. Don't ever believe anything David Davis says. But in terms of partnership, I think what we're going to see next year with open banking is going to be very interesting. I've always said this: the PSD2 and the CMA is a framework-based directive. It's not a standards-based directive, which means that the banks that are required to comply with this regulation can kind of interpret the way they comply. And what I know about banks is banks tend to, send, when the PSD2 documentation first came out, it went to the compliance team, not not people on the front lines. And that's the way banks think about regulation. So I think we're actually going to see maybe a little bit of regulatory arbitrage, where certain banks interpret how to open up their platforms in different ways, and to see which of startups go to which bank. And I really, really believe, ignoring all the PR guff that comes out of banks, that I'm not quite sure they really understand what it means to be like a Google or a Facebook, and open up their platforms, open up their APIs, and let new entrants build on top. Because basically what that does is it eliminates the fiddly humans. The reason why startups have such a difficult time partnering with banks is because humans are involved. And banks are huge, giant, as Andra said, full stack organizations, and it's not anything malicious. It's the way banks operate, and it takes a very long time to negotiate any partnership. I mean, I started boot camp. It was like your heart was ripped out of you every day watching these negotiations just for pilots. With open banking, that has the potential to disappear, and banks can just let new entrants build. If they can look at themselves as not owning the customer, not product siloed, that they decide they're going to be the new financial platform for the new age, and let entrants build on top, that has the potential to really change the industry. And I'm not quite sure they quite understand the ramifications of that or are ready for it.
Interesting. Asif, what would you like to add?
Not a great deal, to be honest. Everything I've heard so far is exactly right. If I'm just brainstorming here as part of our objective, but if I was to envisage a different kind of reign, a different kind of new and challenging scenario, it was really interesting to see yesterday's KPMG H2 Ventures Fintech 100 list, which is a yearly list of 50 leading innovators and 50 emerging stars in the fintech space. And the top 4 were Chinese businesses. Ant Financial, Zhong'an Insurance, Tencent, and another. What does that say from a macro level about the future of financial services when it is being seemingly dominated in the APAC region? Are they leaps and bounds ahead of us in development of technology? How have they done that? And how does that affect us as Europeans? And do we need to have a response?
Great thoughts. Gerrit.
Yeah, if we're looking at the negative side, so we strictly believe in cooperation between startups and incumbents or in big organizations. But if we're looking at the bad side on it, I think a big problem for startups especially is the topic of speed. So from the first get in touch until to go live with a cooperation between banks and fintechs, it could last more than 1 year. And this is so essential for startups to be fast to the market because they have limited access to money and to their resources, and a wrong partnership or a process that lasts too long, it's could be critical to the business of startups. And there are so many gates in the banking process, could be compliance, data protection, and so on. It's so hard for a lot of our fintechs to see how long it needs from the first contact to go live. And then also what is critical, or we could discuss, if you have one big partner, you are kind of dependent to them. So you don't have everything in your arms, so you have to you are dependent to the banks and what their decision, what their strategic roadmap, and you have not only the control of it. So it's also when we are looking on the negative side of it.
Yeah, definitely. Good potential problems. And finally, Timo on the rain.
Yes, thanks, Garrett, for focus on my point. Yeah, I worked for a startup, a fintech startup, and exactly what Garrett said is a huge problem. Sales cycle in B2B for 2 years. You have to finance this 2 years, and then big corporates start with a little pilot. And that's a huge problem. But in my point of view, some guys, I think Thomas dropped the situation with competing of locations. In my point, also regulations can be an issue. In my point of view, what's the USP of a startup? The USP is agile. In my point of view, I never saw a startup that said, especially in Germany, "Oh yeah, I'm going to Frankfurt because there are better conditions." No. And also in regulations, startups find always a way. That's why they're out there. That's a big difference between corporates and startups. That when it's raining, they can easily open an umbrella. A corporate cannot do that, or they can move out of the rain to another state. That's the most differentiation between both things. Startups can move or open up umbrella. A corporate cannot, and that's the difference. And yeah,
fantastic. So moving into this next mindset, which we'll just go through very, very quickly, those multicolored rainbows. There's something quite magical about those beautiful colored arches, and they exist as unique interpretations, optical illusions defined by our imagination. So using your imagination now, not being confined by reality, give yourself superhero powers, have magic wishes, and please, if you're watching, add your answer into the comment roll. What would you give the situation now? Fingers to create change. If you could just donate something huge and different to the world using your imagination. Timo, you mentioned agility, extra agility.
Yeah. But when we talk about fintech markets, I'm always saying the best or the most potential market, I'm talking more real instead of fiction, is Africa, because people grow up with mobile phones. They don't have a bank account. They do everything with the mobile phone, and that's, in my point of view, a huge potential to build up mobile-based business models without regulation. But you have other problems in Africa. But when you look at the conditions down there, it's for me, it's a mark with the best potential, and with a lot of the outlook is pretty amazing. But the risks are pretty high, different risks. But from an entrepreneur's perspective, is no regulation. You can do whatever you want. I mean, not bad in terms of execution. And that's a market I'm pretty excited about it. And we will definitely see that business models in Africa or from East Asia or other frontier markets come to, let's say, Germany or other developed countries.
And I think we're going to see India go cashless before anywhere else. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Asif, with your wildest imagination, what solves some of these problems?
I'm thinking about the wildest thing I can think of, and the wildest thing I can think of isn't that wild. Really, it's just a governance structure from the government level, which gives more respect towards entrepreneurs and what they're producing, because systems and processes which have been evolving over hundreds of years, i.e. banking, need to be changed, and entrepreneurs need to be respected more in order to understand that what they, a lot of these entrepreneurs are ex-bankers themselves. They know the ropes, they know the game. If we had a system where they would be put into the limelight, so, Tech Courtier, level 39, Startup Bootcamp, that's what we're trying to do effectively. We're shining a light on what entrepreneurs are doing. So a little more light, to borrow your analogy of the rainbow, on the entrepreneurs.
Great answer. Gerrit, what would your rainbow thoughts be?
So my wishes would be to get a more homogeneous market, so to reduce the boundaries, especially from the regulatory and legal perspective, to have a common market in Europe. So it's also a reason why the American or the Asian startups raise so much more money and get another valuation, because the market is much more homogeneous. So and that would be great to, even if we have a European Union and some of these big markets will leave them, but there is still a lot of regulatory issues and problems from state to state, and also from a customer perspective. And it would be great for the European market to have a more homogeneous market from a legal and regulatory framework.
Excellent. Andra?
So my hope is that the other missing Lego pieces from the new way of doing banking will emerge, will be developed by other entrepreneurs, and we will not limit ourselves in fintech just at the surface, at the visible part of banking. There is so much underneath which needs to be solved in order that the final offering for the customers it's personalized and relevant. So yeah, my hope is that somehow we will be able to produce that alternative way of doing banking from various components, and I believe that the trend is in that direction anyway.
Great. Thomas, your quick rainbow thoughts?
Yes, so my rainbow thought, so we were talking about fintech, and what we see is that we are all enthusiasts about technology and the development that fintechs bring, but there are so many people out there that actually fear the development of digitization and tech, and they really are afraid that there's something going in a wrong direction, that the machines might take over in the future and stuff like that. So if I'd add, I think it would be really great if we could do a lot more to take away the fear from the people about the developments there currently, because it's not a negative movement. It is to a major extent a positive thing that is happening there. However, we have so many criticisms about those developments, and if I could formulate a wish, then I think we should all see the technology developments more as a positive thing instead of a negative thing.
Love that one. Take the fear out of the market. Liz, your rainbow thoughts?
I tend to not like to have wishes and dreams and like to have stuff rooted in reality, but one of the things I would really like to change is, we're all wringing our hands at the status quo and legacy thinking and legacy technology, and I would like to see a small change, which is when I see a pitch deck from a startup, I don't want to see the last slide deck be a smiling picture of 4 men in hackathon t-shirts. I don't want to see boards of banks that are filled with men in ties and dark suits. I don't want to see, IT departments and leadership departments filled with men. And this is nothing against men, but if you sit there and wring your hands going, why won't anything ever change? And the same people are in charge over and over again. The easiest way to disrupt culture is to change the people that are perpetuating it. And I want to see a lot more women start businesses, and I want to see a lot more women get money to start their businesses. Exactly. So that's what I would like.
But why are they not out there? Sorry to interrupt, but why are they not out there? You know, we you know, there are the possibilities, and I don't like that. You know, some people say, yeah, I want to see more women. Where are they? You know, no one is saying.
You raise a great question, and it's a question which we should address. If we just mute some microphones, it's a question we should address in another brainstorm. The truth is, we don't actually know the answer, and I personally believe it's confidence-based, and that the recent Me Too campaign has actual answers as to why so many women suffer from a lack of confidence. But we'll get that as a different brainstorm because it's an important issue. So the final mindset.
Confidence.
So there's the final mindset when we look at this situation on a beautiful sunny day. What's going on in that environment? We've got more women in the game. The road for women to get to the game is what else is happening on a beautiful sunny day when it's all going on?
That sunny day. I think
Liz, can I come to you so you can finish the point and criticise me on so much deeper than that?
Yeah, there are women values out there. I'm getting a lot of echo. Sorry. Yeah, no, I mean, on a sunny day, we're entering a new age of a financial platform, where it's going to be a lot easier to get the data that startups need to build their product. Variety of startups out there, a lot more problem solving. So the new financial platform for 2018 is what I'd like to see on a sunny day.
Fantastic, thank you. And Thomas, on a beautiful sunny day.
On a beautiful sunny day. So as I said, taking the fear out of the topic of technology. But then there's a second thing, which is financial literacy. So we have, and I think this point was made before, we have to bring everybody globally, or everybody in the world, everybody should have the chance to really participate in this developments. And this is about financial inclusion, but also financial literacy. And I think a beautiful sunny day was that everybody on earth has the opportunity to participate in the positive things about financial technology and fintech.
Wonderful, wonderful. Andra, on a beautiful sunny day?
Let me think, my idea went away. On a beautiful sunny day, I don't expect to see just 4 big banks in UK sharing the market equally. I don't expect to see all the functionalities for delivering financial services clustered with these 4 banks. There is no need for that. This is a result of regulation, various forms of regulation over the years. Interestingly enough, I read recently a lot about that. I didn't know that the technology stacks I'm looking at are actually the result of well-meant regulatory measures. So I would like to see real competition. I would like to see customers treated as customers with choices and services which are appropriate for them. I would like to see the whole spectrum of the population being served. So we are looking at huge inequality in UK with entire sectors which are completely underserved. So we're thinking Africa and underbanked, we should look in our own yard. So I would like to see it.
Thank you. Timo.
Yeah, I think we have sunny days right now because, like I said, everyone has the opportunity to create, to see problems, to solve them. We have enough money in the markets. We have very creative people coming out from different institutes, or also people, I would not say on the street, but other people, they see problems, they solve it. I'm pretty optimistic right now. I know we have some challenges like the Brexit thing or Trump maybe, but overall it's very positive. What we the last couple of years, what kind of startups popped up. We have Uber. They're also both sides, good and bad. But I think, well, in my world, we are right now a really sunny day, and it keep going. I think it's for the next couple of months and years. It's sun is shining. I'm very positive.
Excellent. Asif, what would you like to add?
My point, I think, is just going to slightly go back to what Liz and Andrea were talking about diversity. I think we ought to remember that financial services and government is predominantly staffed by very well-paid senior men who don't really understand the genuine importance of innovation, because it doesn't affect them, right? They're going to retire, comfy salary, and then move on. In a sunny day, in a sunny world, people at the highest levels of incumbent organizations and those people at the negotiating table in Brussels would be would understand the long-term implications of their actions and their decisions, which I think would benefit us all greatly. So that kind of change would be a real sunny day for me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Who else had something to add? Sorry. Andrew, did you want to speak? If not, we...
No, appreciating very much what I said. I think in UK we are very much at the end of that. Probably it's very difficult to perceive even from Germany what happens on the ground and how people feel about what is happening.
Can I add something to the previous comment from what's your name? I totally agree, Asif. I totally agree, but I'm like I said, I'm pretty optimistic. When these guys in the big towers and banks see innovation, young dynamics take over. It's for me. It's like, I know it's really hard. I worked for an insurance company and I left exactly for that reason. But if these people are tired, if these people are not see the change, young guys or more dynamic guys and sort of take over. And that's what I mean with sunny days. If someone is lazy in these days, other people take over.
I agree with that.
Fantastic. Gerrit, did you have anything to say?
Yeah, maybe for me, sunny days, I have the same sun shining in my face as Timo here in Berlin. But so the next level of collaboration, I think would be really sunny. So it's more collaboration also between fintechs and other fintechs, between banks and insurances. So it's a more platformization and marketplace where everyone has its part, but it's more open and more that no one is only thinking about itself. It's more an open ecosystem. That would be really sunny for us, and also with less fears in the decision making and much more with the willingness to see opportunities in the market. I think this is, especially from a German culture, it's a bit missing. So more opportunities and less fears, would be great. And here's the sun again.
And my sunny day, by way of re-explaining the confidence, it was investors' confidence in women, the market's confidence in women, rather than women's necessarily in themselves. So the final weather report to end this conversation. Perhaps we can see the mind map shortly to see quite how far we've developed. Now, to sum up, what is winning in this situation and how are we going to win? Who'd like to start us off? By collaborating, by better working together, by making the market more homogeneous, by not ignoring the wider world, China, India, Africa, by realizing that these country borders are, hot air, as Asif described them, in terms of the fiscal division of the geography of our world, where fintech transcends all borders, by better working together, irrelevant of our physical location, but more because we share a common mindset, a common skill set, and a common attitude towards what we're trying to achieve. How can we do this? Or what else is winning? Would anyone like to add a closing comment?
Here's the mind map quickly. You can see that.
See the mind map? Here it comes.
Can you see that? Can you see the mind map?
Yeah, but it's kind of hard to read.
Okay, well.
Okay.
We'll share it with everybody.
I think everyone made, you know, it's not an either or. It's not a this is the silver bullet solution. Everyone made points that talk about improving the industry, and different parts, different players will have, and that sort of strong ecosystem. So it's not a debate about what's the key, you know, strategy, or what's the silver bullet, or what's, I don't know. It's a combination of a lot of nuanced, complicated, layered factors, really.
Absolutely right. This is not a zero-sum game by any means. I think some parts of the old system will fall away naturally, and some new players will come on board. But it does not benefit us broadly to act as if this is a zero-sum game or some kind of competition where we have to elbow each other in the face as hard as possible. We need to see where we can improve each other's markets and see where we can improve our own. But it's not an either or.
Yeah. For me, it's like I said a little bit before, let's say gender, religion, skin color, it doesn't matter, or it doesn't matter anymore. When you have a good idea, when you want to change something, you find other people who give you money, who give you support. And that's what I mean with sunny days. That's why I'm really optimistic. And we see in the future, we see a lot of new things coming up.
Fantastic. How are we going to win?
I think everything was said, but not by everybody. So I think I cannot add a lot on that. So I think if we try to really execute what we discussed today, collaborating more than competing and seeing it all from the same perspective, then this will be a bright future. And actually, as Timo said, the future is here.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you all very much for participating in this global brainstorm for Fintech Friday. Your time has been invaluable. Your insight has been inspiring. Nothing more to say other than thank you. And we'll be sharing the results with the brainstorm mind map and the analysis that will take place as a result of this conversation with everybody who's registered shortly. Thank you all for taking part.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.